Well, we're back to the Nevada Northern and the old abandoned tracks of the Nevada Northern. We were there last week.
Right.
But all along the route are old abandoned train stations. Some are not abandoned. One of them's still used.
Yes.
Another one they're going to try to use and so on.
Right.
But check this out. We're going to go up the line and check all of the old abandoned depots. This should be fun. Well, we're back in Ely. Isn't it fun to come out here?
I love it.
This is just such a great railroad. The land that time forgot.
Right. This has to be one of my most favorite railroads out here.
Oh, totally. It's so far off the beaten path, but it's well worth the long drive out here. Just so well preserved, and in large part because it is so far off the beaten path that nothing's really happened out here.
No.
It's just stayed the same and stayed the same and stayed the same. The railroad closed in 1978, and then it became a museum in 1986.
Oh, wow.
And look at what they inherited.
No kidding.
Kennicott, who owned the railroad, had saved all of this equipment, in large part because they were using it. It was old. This steam crane here, they were using it right up to the day they closed the railroad. Not the steam locomotives, but there were 3 steam locomotives here as well.
Wow.
It's just amazing. 2 of the steam engines needed to be rebuilt, but number 40 at the back there was operational when they got it.
Imagine that.
Isn't that something? So this is a really old photograph of downtown Ely, and we can see a highway right here. It's a dirt road, but that's the old Lincoln Highway.
Oh, wow.
That went from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. And these tracks right here are the main line coming down from the mines headed toward the mill and smelter at McGill, going right through the middle of Ely.
Oh, my.
And here's what that grade looks like today. They ran right along the right side of this road back here. It's pretty easy to figure out where the roadbed was because they've put those utility poles right up the middle of the old roadbed. But can you imagine those ore trains coming through here 3 times an hour?
Oh, my.
So the people weren't very happy, and they wanted the tracks moved, and that's what you can see over here. They're actually putting in the new main line that skirts out and around Ely so that it doesn't run right through the middle of town. But look at this. This is the old original depot that was on that main line.
Wow, that's a beautiful building, really.
Isn't that a neat train station? But when they moved the lines, this was left high and dry.
Oh, dear.
So they stopped using it as a train station. It's been renamed the Requa Old Depot for Mark Requa, who built the railroad, and now it's the Senior Citizen Center. But it's been preserved. You can see right through here where the tracks came through, and this would have been the platform right here at the back of the depot, and then heading north up along this side of the depot. Isn't that neat?
That's cool.
It's just fun when you stumble across these old grades like this. Still pretty obvious where the tracks went. Now at the far end of this picture, the tracks made a bend to our left and crossed over the Lincoln Highway right here. And I'll bet you anything the rails are still under the highway there somewhere.
They could be.
I'll bet you. And then look, on the other side of the road, they're still in.
Oh.
Well, actually, they've been relayed, but that's where they were because now this is the White Pine County Museum. And I don't think these are the original tracks. I think they've been put back on the original grade. But just north of here, it's original track. So I'm not sure because look at this. Here's the original main line.
Oh, isn't that neat?
And it's still there. And it runs down to the museum. They don't take trains down there. It's inoperable. A lot of the section's buried under dirt and so on. But isn't that neat? The line's still there.
Maybe someday it will run.
I'll bet it does. Now, the hub of operation on the railroad was at East Ely. This is where the shops were.
Oh.
And the switching yards and so on. And of course, this is where the museum is now, is at East Ely in the old original shops. But look at this, the East Ely Depot's still here.
It sure is. Isn't that a neat building?
Isn't that? And this is the only depot on the line that's still being used as a train station. So that's really neat to see. The inside of the depot is really well preserved. You know, this is just, they haven't fixed this up. This is what it looked like in 1986 when we unlocked the doors.
Wow.
Started going through here, and all the old stationery was still on the shelves, and all of the old tax records and everything were still neatly filed away in filing cabinets and so on. You know, all of these receipts go clear back to 1906.
Wow.
They never threw anything away.
Wow. I know that feeling.
Hoarders. But it's all right here. You can go all the way back to the original construction receipts in 1906.
Oh, my.
All just stashed there. Anyway, so it makes for a great museum.
It sure does.
And people come from all over the world. These people had come from Europe. There's a program where you can learn to run the train. And these guys had all signed up to be locomotive engineers and go through the engineer school.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
I think they were from Denmark or someplace like that. But how cool is this?
Check that off the bucket list.
Now, last week we were looking at the old abandoned tracks as they head north out of Ely. There are really some beautiful old abandoned tracks.
The scenery is really cool.
It's stark, but it's beautiful in its own right. And I know there's some hope of getting at least some of these tracks operational again.
That'd be great if they could.
But this is the train station at McGill, and there's a hope that they'll be able to get the trains operational from Ely up to McGill. And we can see on the map here that McGill is just not that far from Ely.
Not really, no.
No, not compared to the whole rest of the line. The biggest problem with getting trains back up here to the depot at McGill is that it crosses over the highway, and the highway department's not too keen on them crossing at grade, and they'd probably have to put in some sort of an overpass, and that's expensive. But with any luck, that's exactly what they're going to do.
Right.
And be able to ride the steam train up here to the old depot at McGill. That'd be really fun. Well, let's keep tracking north out of McGill. The line continues up the Steptoe Valley all the way up to the Union Pacific. The next stop on the line is Cherry Creek.
Neat.
And the depot and everything at Cherry Creek was well outside of Cherry Creek. It's down here in the middle of the valley, the town itself being up a little canyon. But this is where the train station and the yard and the freight depot and everything historically was located right here, the Cherry Creek siding. All still in, of course.
Wow.
And just the tiniest smattering of Cherry Creek infrastructure is still down here, but for the most part, all that's left are the tracks. That structure in the distance is all that remains of the water tank that was here, the water tower.
I'm surprised even that much stands.
Yeah, over time, the elements have a way of just destroying everything. If you're not actively taking care of it, the elements will take care of it, won't they?
They sure will.
This is what Cherry Creek looked like when I first came up here in 1986.
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago, and actually everything was still here.
Wow.
The freight depot was here, the water tank was here, the semaphore was here, everything was here.
Oh, look at that depot.
Isn't that a beautiful little depot? The Cherry Creek Depot. It was such a beautiful location that somebody had the idea to move the whole thing.
That's what I was wondering, if it got moved.
It got moved. So the water tank fell down, but everything else got moved out of here. And here's what the Cherry Creek Depot looked like after it was moved to Ely.
Nice.
It's at the White Pine County Museum. And unfortunately, it sat for quite some years all boarded up like this. But now, it's all restored.
Oh, that is so cool what they've done.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful little depot. And thank goodness this has been preserved. I hate to see something moved from its original location, but bringing it down here to the White Pine County Museum, everybody can enjoy it. And it is still right here on the Nevada Northern Tracks.
Exactly.
It's just not Nevada Northern Tracks that are used anymore. But look at the inside. Isn't that beautiful?
That's just neat.
Now, just to the right of the station master's desk here, we can see these two big metal handles, and those operated the semaphore signaling.
Well, that's cool.
Isn't that neat? One lever for each flag out there. And the flags would tell the trains whether or not they needed to stop to pick up a passenger. So if the train crew saw the flags in this position, they could just continue on. If the arm was extended, they would have to stop and pick someone up. Now, most of the interior of the depot is actually the station master's home.
And that is nice by today's standards.
Isn't that a lovely little home?
I love it.
I don't think a lot of people understand that with whistle stop stations, this was just somebody's home.
I know. I love it there.
There weren't the interior spaces weren't necessarily waiting room and so on, but somebody had to be here 24 hours a day to man the station. And so a family lived right in the little depot.
This would be an interesting place to live. I think I would like it.
Yeah, other than the fact that you're living out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I have lived out in the middle of nowhere.
That's for sure. But look at the neat museum that they've got here. They've got a lot of other equipment, and they've got a lot of artifacts from the old Lincoln Highway.
They do, and it's fun.
We've actually got a whole show up on the White Pine County Museum. So here's a link to that. But they've got some great artifacts from the Lincoln Highway here. At the beginning of the 20th century, you had to be pretty intrepid and courageous to head out on the nation's highways in an automobile.
I can only imagine.
Because their highways is an exaggeration. Trail.
Yes.
A dirt trail is more to the point. But these were the nation's highways, and people did drive on them. Well, anyway, not a lot left of Cherry Creek, just the track and some pieces of the old water tower. But this is some of the most beautiful abandoned track I've ever seen.
It's not that in that bad a condition either, not really.
No, because they keep hoping to reopen it. Well, let's continue north and see what more we can find on our trip north toward the Union Pacific. It's like this. So here's our next town up the line. This is Curie.
Oh.
Funny little town. The interesting thing about Curie is that it really hasn't changed much since they abandoned it. This is a photograph I took when I first arrived here in 1986. And about 15 years later, I came by again. And other than the fact that the depot was now boarded up, it really doesn't look any different. And pretty much it looks the same today as it did back then. They did put the entire town up for sale.
Oh.
And I'm not sure if somebody's bought it, but they kept dropping the price. The original price was $150,000 for the whole town.
Oh, gee.
And I don't think they had any takers. If you're looking for a town, this one's for sale.
Yes.
But what a beautiful, beautiful little town up on the Nevada Northern. Whether the railroad ever becomes a railroad again is anybody's guess. But this is just one of the most fascinating places on the Nevada Northern.
No kidding.
The little town of Curie. Now, there are a few people still living here. This is the old school, but they built a new one.
I would hope so.
And last time I heard, I think there were 2 kids that went to the school.
Ah.
And so nobody's too keen on operating the whole place. And I think the population's down to about 15 people.
A whole 15.
A whole 15. So this is a ghost town. Anyway, Nevada Northern is still a beautiful, beautiful museum there at Ely.
It really is.
And who knows, maybe they will get the line open, at least as far as McGill. And as the tracks are in, you just never know.
That's right.
We can hope. Wouldn't that be something to be able to ride the train all the way to Curie?
That would be fun.
That would really be something. And never say never. Anything's possible. That's really neat.
Isn't it, though?
I really regretted seeing them move Cherry Creek to Ely. Mm-hmm. And then for years it just stood there boarded up, and that was really sad, but it was falling apart being out on the line. And Anyway, now it's all fixed up and it's part of a museum, and
Yes,
and that's better.
that's cool.
That's betterer. And the depot there at McGill, they're getting it fixed up. I
Yeah,
mean,
I would hope so. That's really neat.
they're not breaking any speed records, but then
No.
they don't have to, do they?
Not necessarily.
Just the fact that it's being preserved is
Exactly.
that's all it really matters.
That's right.
Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, please pop over to the channel. And if you're not a subscriber, here's your golden, actually it's blue,
It's a golden blue.
a blue button. Here's your blue button opportunity. Are we ready for it?
Yeah.
Zoink. Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet, and we hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here on Tuesday as we look at some interesting caca. See you then.
I'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.